Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of the Outer Realm. We're broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been with us on this journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so much. Also, big thank you to Dr. Snick, Justin Snicker, the sonic surgeon, for our intro and outro. You can check him out. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found anywhere that good music can be found. And 'tis the season, so definitely check him out. It's got a lot of new stuff coming up. Artwork is provided by Mr. Steve McGinnis, another amazing artist. Check him out. You can find him on Facebook. Tonight, we welcome for the very first time filmmaker and author Richard Stanley, and he's going to be discussing Otto Rahn and the Holy Grail, his search for this, and it's just so fascinating. There's so much to this. You guys are just going to have to check it out because it's just pretty mind-blowing. But in order to do that, you're going to have to check out all of our chat room. So tonight we are on, switching up a little bit. You can find us on LinkedIn under our producer, Joe Montaldo. You can find us on YouTube, Outer Realm, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, and UFO Paranormal. On Facebook, News on the Flip Side, UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio, Canada's Most Haunted, and of course the Outer Realm. And go ahead and drop your comments in. I see we're filling up. So hello. There we are.
Hello,
Bubbles.
Hi. How are you?
I'm okay, man. It's
Hi,
been a day.
Carrie.
Been a day.
Yeah.
Finding
Been
out
a
all
week.
kinds of goodies. Oh yeah.
Been a week and it's only Wednesday. Hi, Carrie. Hi, Jeannie. Hi,
is
Chevelle. Hi,
only
Zach.
Wednesday.
Hi, Wayne. Yeah.
And I just put a little something out there for stalkers out there. You stalkers? Yeah. Okay. Doing all kinds of crazy stuff, trying to get yourselves noticed, you need to stop because there are cease and desists for that. There are lawyers for that. And that's a happening thing if it doesn't stop. So enough is enough. Go away.
Yeah. I always say I have the time and means to keep you there forever. So you might want to think of it twice.
Finances are not an issue, okay?
No, I have no issues keeping you in court for a long time.
I've been nice to this point, and I'm not going to be nice for much longer. Enough is enough.
No, it's really scary and it's intrusive.
Take the hint.
It's sociopathic, my darling. It's sociopathic if you're listening and watching.
That's right.
It's wrong what you're doing.
That's right. And from what I understand, friends have been very vocal about this to this individual before. So clearly somebody is just not getting it. And I have been very kind. But again, I have a very good lawyer on this. So if it continues, it's not going to be pretty. Enough. So hate to vent. Hate to be a bearer of bad news. Because that's not what we like to do.
It's hump day. It's midweek.
I've got this person blocked. So it's the only way I can come out and just say it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, because we know that they're listening.
Exactly. Sad but true. But tonight, I'm so excited for tonight. So we have Richard Stanley, who, thank you to our dear friend Hamilton White for this connection. Mm-hmm. I know. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I know. Exactly.
That's a whole other show.
It is. And he's going to be coming on in a few minutes. So if we want to give him a little intro, that would be fantastic.
I will definitely get to that right now. Our guest tonight was born in South Africa. Stanley was first exposed to the 1934 moving image of King Kong at the age of 4 when his father brought home a 16 millimeter print. In 1989, a short film written and directed by Stanley, The Rites of Passage, won the IAC International Student Film Trophy, which he used to draw sufficient interest and funding to create the Cape Town Film and Video School, first of its kind on the subcontinent. That is historical, right? Just right there. Richard Stanley is a documentarian, journalist, filmmaker, cameraman, screenplay writer, and director of music videos, commercial, and cult classic films, and well known in the horror film genre. In 2019, Stanley directed the film Lovecraft's The Color Out of Space, starring Nicolas Cage. Stanley is currently residing in Montségur, France, where he was granted permanent residency in the region and is currently working on a multi-volume chronicle on the history of that castle.
Ooh.
I know.
Yes. Dun, dun, dun. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, good evening,
How are
Michelle.
you?
Amelia.
How are you?
Hello.
I'm very good. It's 3 in the morning here in French Occitania, and I'm absolutely delighted to be with you.
Thank you.
Oh.
So you look pretty spry considering it's 3
You look
in
like
the
us
morning
at
for
3
you.
a.m. actually.
Yes.
Oh, I guess I've always been a bit of a night owl, and the
Yeah.
moon's still pretty full out there. So
Oof. Very nice.
That's
Very
good.
nice.
That's good. Unfortunately, Hamilton and Carl are not night owls, so we have to film during the
No.
day. Just saying, Hamilton.
Yeah, we can razz them a lot now.
no,
See,
that's
Richard
true.
did it.
And yeah, Hamilton unfortunately is still recovering from a pretty nasty incident earlier in the week because, as you may know,
Yes.
Hamilton's house got struck by lightning.
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
which did an insane amount of damage and behaved very strangely. Didn't trip any of the circuit breakers or any of the fuses in the house, but yeah, ran through the entire building.
Oh my God.
It's scary.
wasn't happy.
My house has been struck right where it went right behind me, and I saw the reflection in the mirror. It went right through my window and behind me and just bounced back off of the wall. It's scary.
Yeah, no, truly,
Yeah.
and the insurers won't cover it because they say it's an act of God, and
So I'll give you an act of God.
Yeah, I won't pay the
You should have
next
heard me
statement.
ranting a few minutes ago.
Oh,
I'm
like,
all over act of God right now.
yeah, and of course they won't accept an act of aggressive witchcraft either as an explanation. So
Wow.
they wouldn't accept that. We can write a letter.
That's it. We'll send in some hate mail.
We'll
I
write you a
don't
note, Hamilton. We'll write you a note. Proof.
yeah, well, I hope he gets his power back on soon, so at least he can tune in.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Me too.
Well, thank you for joining us. I don't even know where to start, but I guess I'm going to start as always with humble beginnings. I mean, what brought you to France? What was your motivation? I mean, I understand all the films and everything else, but you've spent a lot of research on this upcoming project or the book. I don't want to say too much about the book because that's not my news to share. So why don't you start wherever you want to start? And we're just going to keep up with you and throw stuff in as we go along. How about that?
Okay, so yes, there is a book on the way, and it's been a very embattled manuscript. It's taken 32 years to bring it to this point. The working title is The Last Crusade, and I'm very much hoping The Last Crusade will be with us by shortly after Halloween. And it yeah, it represents 32 years of field work out here. I first came here in the summer of 1990, and I admit it was initially for entirely cynical reasons. I was engaged by Channel 4 Television's religion department as a researcher back then.
Wow.
And they were they'd had a hit documentary called The Real Jurassic Park about retrieving dinosaur DNA from amber, and they wanted to follow that up with a Rail Raiders the Lost Ark show. So they engaged me as a researcher to try and find out if there was any truth behind the story that the Nazis had been looking for the Ark of the Covenant, either shortly before or during World War II. And I was dispatched to Europe in 1990 with a reasonable budget to try and track down any surviving members of the Arnhenberger SS, the SS's archaeological group, and to see if any of them would be prepared to be interviewed for British television. At that point in time, it was strictly a job, and along the way, obviously, I found eyewitnesses, I found first-hand testimony, and gradually a story started to emerge that was so incredible that I had a very hard time believing it, and it wasn't quite the story that Channel 4 television wanted. To begin with, we didn't find an Ark of the Covenant story, but what we did find was a Holy Grail story. And the deeper I bored into it, the stranger it got. In the end, I found about 28 eyewitnesses, people who had actually been around at the time and who were prepared to talk to us. And when Channel 4 television backed away from the project, I continued on my own. I got so involved that I felt that we needed to basically harvest the testimony and get the story down while these folk were still alive, because my witnesses obviously started dying off. It was right at the tail end of the period when it was possible to still find anyone who had been in a command position or a position of power at the time. Now in 2022, they're all gone. The recordings and the documentary evidence really is all we've got to prove that it ever happened.
Wow, 32 years. The SS was pretty known for going after holy relics, though, weren't they? I mean, there's stories of them going everywhere to try and collect these pieces for, esoteric reasons, occult reasons, I'm sure, as they were heavily involved in that, but also for a museum. Is that right?
Yeah,
Their destiny was supposed to be in their hands as well?
Yeah, that's true as well. And along the way, they did some, a lot of it obviously was nonsense, but at the same time, they actually did a few things which were pretty remarkable, like the first Tibet expedition. They were really the first Europeans to make it to Lhasa, and some of that stuff was pretty surprising. And being the SS, they also consistently asked questions that no one else ever asked, and conducted pretty questionable research that no one else ever reproduced. I mean, the Tibet expedition were interested, for instance, in the role of homosexuality in temple politics. They investigated ritual cannibalism, plenty of different ideas that subsequent expeditions kind of ignored. But I pretty much zeroed in on the Holy Grail story, which became my my running passion / burden over the years.
Yes, absolutely. And in your research, because everybody's got a theory, and let's go with your perspective on this. What is the Holy Grail?
Well, many cups to choose from, always.
Yeah. Okay, let's go with your favorite cup.
A chalice, perhaps?
Yeah,
like
a chalice.
Yeah, I guess it's worth saying that for a lot of folk, they think the Holy Grail is a purely metaphorical idea or a romantic notion, but in point of fact, there are any number of physical objects, actual material objects, which do tick all the boxes and correspond to the description of being the Holy Grail. There's quite a few of these objects that survive into the present day and are still punting around modern day Europe. Wow. I mean, it's difficult to know quite when the story starts, because the earliest accounts of the Holy Grail story are now lost to us. I think Chrétien de Troyes accounts the earliest that survives. We know that there were probably 2 or 3 earlier Grail epics from Guillaume de Provence and Flegetanus the Moor, which are now lost to us. And going further back from that, I guess you can link it to Brand's Cauldron or the cornucopia, the notion of something that will give you anything you want, that will renew your life and give you peace and plenty. But by the time it came to Chrétien de Troyes' first account of Parsifal, the Grail is described as a serving dish, as a golden platter bearing the Christian fish symbol, the version of the Vesica Pisces. And this serving platter from the Chrétien de Troyes account still exists and is in the collection of the Louvre Museum Gallery in Paris.
Right.
And was authenticated and traced down by the religious historian Mark Oxbrow. Then in the second account we get Parsifal by Wolfram von Eschenbach. The Grail is now described as a hard, dark stone, lapis exilus, the stone from the sky, a dark stone kept in a reliquary. It's this dark stone from the sky that
sounds like a bit of meteorite.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that our line of research on this has traced it back to what's essentially a meteorite, and quite likely the same substance that the black stone of the Kaaba is formed out of in Islam. For some unfathomable reason, when you pray, everyone has to face Mecca and has to align themselves towards the black stone of the Kaaba. And in the corner of that stone is another one of these mysterious dark stones, which may well be meteoric aerolites, fragments of the great outside, a substance from another world that presumably came here as meteoric debris millions of years ago. And these things have been venerated by early human beings, literally cave dwellers, Cro-Magnons, and people since before the before recorded history even began. And closely linked to the origins of goddess worship. The goddess, the Roman goddess Sybil or Cybele, is also meant to have been a black goddess whose body was carved allegedly out of a single meteoric aerolite. This Phrygian goddess who was brought down the Tiber on a barge and installed in the Phrygianum in Rome. So that's the black stone is the Grail of Wolfram's Parsifal. And I guess teasing it out from there, there's also those who say that the Grail is the blood of Christ. And Dietrich of Alsace brought a phial of the blood of Christ back from at the time of the Crusades. Gave it to the town of Bruges, and it's still there in a glass phial in the sanctuary of the Basilica of the Holy Blood in Bruges, where it's venerated to this day.
And it never dried up. It never oxidized even within that.
Apparently not. It's a little like I guess that the phial of creepy green goo in that John Carpenter movie, Prince of Darkness, only red, and it's there in the Basilica of the Holy Blood in Bruges. And if you're believing it's the blood of Christ is the Holy Grail, that too is a Grail. And at some point, the Catholic Church made a big move to Christianize the Grail and bring it into the Catholic faith, and basically reinterpreted it as a Christian relic, as the cup of the Last Supper. And there's a number of different cups answering to that description, notably the Cup of Valencia, which also punting around Europe. And then there's other folk who would link it to the Cup of Abraham, which is way older and part of the sacred treasure of the Temple of Solomon. and
That's interesting.
yeah, allegedly excavated by the Knights Templar at the time of the Crusade, and again quite possibly brought back to Europe, which is where Hamilton and Carl come into the story.
Right. I know. Well, that'll be another show.
They get around.
They do. Yeah, they do. So what about the theory of, let's just go a bit commercial for a moment. The whole Da Vinci Code version of
the Da Vinci Code version is basically Dan Brown is springboarding off the research originally done by my former neighbor Henry Lincoln, who sadly passed earlier this year.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, in April, he literally lived across the river from where I am now, and it was Lincoln, Basinton Lee, and Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, who basically postulated the idea that it's a version of Sangreal, Blood Royal, of the Christ bloodline, basically the notion that Christ married Mary Magdalene and had issue. Which in its own right, I'm not sure whether that's something I fully buy into, because obviously there's a huge morass of conspiration and speculation surrounding the Holy Blood, Holy Grail research and the documentation of it. And the one thing we clearly don't have is nobody has Christ's DNA. We have no idea, no way of actually or authenticating that story, or
do we?
Well, there's different folk that would argue that, but I still don't think we've got any actual surviving physical relics from the time of Christ.
But we could have physical people that are descendants of, and
how would you know? I think
how would you know?
Just trying to say, exactly.
Yeah, it's a bit like
could be anybody, right?
I know.
It's a bit like trying to find dinosaur DNA. It's super hard finding, provable physical evidence of Christ's existence from the time to actually authenticate that. And as a result, there are any number of people in the present day, certainly right here in the area I live in, who claim to be descended from either Christ or Mary Magdalene. I wouldn't want to back any of their claims, because they're all very heavily divided against each other.
Yeah, that would be a tough one. I mean, Mary Magdalene at least lived in the area. People pretty much, she lived alone for so long. You never know, but it may not be what people think, but Christ, I mean, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, Bayesian, Lincoln, and Lee argued that it was the Merovingian bloodline.
Yes.
And that in itself is a wee bit contentious from the point of view that there's a lot of folk who don't believe the Merovingian bloodline descended to the present day. And also looking at the original myth, strictly speaking, the Merovingian bloodline's meant to stem from a sea monster.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding.
And somebody's favorite type of coffee out there. A lot of people like that.
Arthur and the sword when he goes down to the water.
The story we got from the mythology is that the actual origin of the bloodline is, according to the myth, is supposed to be a Lovecraftian sea creature called Merivale. And Merivale is meant to have, unnaturally touched or sexually molested Clotilde, the Celtic priestess, while she was swimming. Thus, begat the bloodline. I have no idea what the heck Merivale was, or if it even existed. A detail
always crazy, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, a detail that always makes me smile is that the original myth says that Merivale was like unto a quinator. Which is the best description we got. I've got no idea what a quinator even is, but Merivale wasn't a quinator, but he was like unto a quinator.
Right, as I really was hoping you'd know, because I've got nothing. But so what? Yeah, no, please.
Yeah, I
Go
know,
for it.
a tiny, but it'll be salient later on. A tiny detail of that is that some of the modern day vampire orders, the folk who currently believe that they are vampires or yeah, believe in this sort of thing, but also claim Merave as the ancestor of the vampire bloodline of the original vampires who made the other vampires. So there's different claims on the Merovingian bloodline, and
I
I can
didn't
also
realize that was one of them.
yeah, that's one of the wilder ones, but there are unfortunately folk out there who do believe this stuff, and there are folk out there who are drinking human blood.
That I know. There's cults, or shall we say orders. There are orders and groups all over the place that do that. I wouldn't even think that it would be safe nowadays to do such things, but apparently they can get tested donors and things of that nature.
Yeah, I
But
was gonna
it's
say right
definitely out there.
within themselves, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
That are
and
yeah.
a lot of the sanguinarium documents online and stuff are mostly to do with trying to find safe sources of human blood and ways of
Mhm.
pursuing this rather vain pastime, because I believe it's all to keep oneself young and good looking, and to yeah,
Oh, yeah.
to try and live forever without getting any major blood diseases, or without contracting
Mhm.
AIDS, or
Mhm.
yeah, nowadays COVID.
Right. At least.
Gosh.
At least nowadays. Um, so why do you think Otto Rahn was, I mean, aside from the fact that the Nazis were very interested in this sort of thing, what makes you think, like, why do you think he would go on this crusade to try to find this? Why this specifically?
A lot of it comes down to where Otto grew up. He grew up in the Black Forest, and
That'll do it.
yeah, and he was within striking distance of Wildenborg Castle, where
Yes.
Wolfram wrote Parsifal.
Right.
So he must have heard the story as a child,
Hmm.
as a very young man, and must have visited the castle, and was probably imbued with this legend from right from the very beginning.
Right.
And I think he was also very heavily influenced by the brothers Grimm,
Yes.
by
Mm,
Jakob and Wilhelm.
Right.
And I think he wanted to be a modern day sort of antecedent to the brothers Grimm,
Hmm.
and pursue a career as a folklorist.
Hmm.
And another character of that time, a figure who was I think a hero to Otto, but all but unknown to us,
Hmm.
is it was the German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann, who had this who believed that Homer's Iliad wasn't just a poem but reflected real history,
Hmm.
and set out to find the mythical city of Troy, and
Right.
actually found it, and proved that Troy was a real place,
Yes.
which was a sensation at the time. It was this
Hmm.
being back in the very dawn of the 20th century.
Hmm.
So Otto sought to, I think, emulate Schliemann's work by proving that the epic poem Parsifal also reflected real history, and he thought that by back engineering the poem in a similar way to the way that Schliemann had approached the Iliad,
Hmm.
that he might actually be able to find the Grail Castle, and pin down the myth to historic reality.
Right. And the Grail Castle would be? How
Well,
did he determine what that would be?
yeah, Otto arrived at the idea. I connected Montsalvat, the Grail Castle from the myth, to Montsegur,
Mhm.
the castle here in the Pyrenees,
Right.
and found clues within the text, notably to do with the hermit who initiates Parsifal, who is described in the original poem as inhabiting this cave known as Fontenay, the wild fountain, the hermit Trevisan, who in the poem is described as someone who ate neither flesh nor fowl, presumably a pescatarian or a vegetarian, and Otto felt this fitted the notion of the 12th century heretics known as the Cathars, who inhabited this area, who were themselves pescatarians and were strictly against meat eating from the point of view that they believed
Except
animal
for fish.
which I think was a mistake. I think that was based on a medieval misunderstanding of biology.
Right.
They believed that all living creatures had souls or had a similar spiritual essence, and at that point in time they thought fish didn't, because fish don't breathe, and
cold-blooded? Would that be right?
and they also didn't believe. They thought they just spawned naturally, like waterweed. They didn't realize that fish also come from eggs.
Right.
And I think if they'd had a deeper understanding of biology, they probably would have given up fish too. At the point when they were exterminated and brought down as a people, they were still debating whether or not it was okay to eat dolphins and whales. They couldn't figure out whether dolphins and whales were warm-blooded or cold-blooded.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
They're sentient beings.
And I guess they never really had time to really formalize the dogma.
No.
They were still working it out at the point in time when they were effectively vaporized.
But it was very sad, very sad. I always find it interesting, when I delve into that story, because the man, I think, who led that attack, his brother led the attack in Jerusalem, who was what the heck was his name? What was his name? I know you know. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Well, yeah, the military commander of the crusade was Simon de Montfort.
Yes, it was his brother, apparently, who led the battle that night where 20,000 Cathars were killed. Because apparently they're both a little bit, both of them, something that had to do with the family. But I remember reading about the brother, and they said, oh no, there's something wrong with both of those men.
Yeah, well, I mean, they say that Simon de Montfort was also very short-sighted, that he had failing eyesight. They say that's the reason why he was so brutal, is that he was unable to see the expressions on people's faces, couldn't see the emotion in their eyes, and only had a partial view of the castles and cities that he was burning. But it's a bizarre state of affairs, because they're also responsible for founding Britain's bicameral parliamentary system. So are remembered as heroes in England. De Montfort College in Leicester is named after them.
Isn't that crazy?
Down here in the Pyrenees, they're remembered as psychopathic monsters.
Yes.
Simon also was a military genius, unfortunately. He built war machines, the like of which the world had never seen before. He built the largest catapult the world had ever seen, which was a giant catapult called Malvoisin, Bad Neighbor, that was capable of pounding castles into dust, essentially, and kept pulling things out of the bag that the Occitanian people just weren't expecting and hadn't ever seen before. And pretty much single-handedly brought down two nations. Occitania ceased to exist, and so did Catalonia. And what's left of Occitania has been assimilated into modern-day France, and Catalonia has been assimilated into Spain. And both territorial issues continue to be a sore point to this present day.
It's unbelievable that one man can do and leave so much carnage and do so much damage. What intrigues me was the Cathar prophecy, because there's been a lot online about that, even social media in the last year. I belong to a few different Cathar groups, and they are really on about the Cathar prophecy. Can you talk about that? And so it's for people who don't know what that is. I mean, I guess if you guys have never been to France, or studied any of this, you wouldn't understand, um, much about this. But I'm hoping by the end of the show, you guys will, because it's a pretty amazing story.
Yeah, and I think it's also incredibly cogent at this point in time for a number of reasons. It's a story which is almost completely unknown to most of the folk in the world beyond these mountains. But at the same time, right now it's become a very hot issue.
Right.
Which, because we are living in literally in the time of prophecy.
Right.
And basically the last fully initiated Cathar adept, Wilhelm Bellybast, went to the stake in 1321, thus, severing the line of initiation effectively. But before dying, issued a prophecy saying that after 7 centuries, after 700 years, the old ways would return and the laurel would turn green again, that the initiatory line would be reestablished, the edifice of the Holy Roman Church would fall. In fact, he also said that a descendant of the House of Aragon would graze their horse on the altars in Rome, always giving me the sense of an Aragonese warrior literally riding their horse into St. Peter's, which is, must have been a nice thought to cling to as Bellybast went to the stake. But the gap of 7 centuries from 1321 obviously brings us to 2021, last year, which is when the prophecy fell due. And 2021 was also the 777th anniversary of the fall of Montsegur, the fall of the Cathar castle. By a strange coincidence, it was 700 years after the death of Bellybast, 777 years after the fall of Montsegur, and also 77 years after the raid by the 3rd Panzer Division Das Reich on Montsegur in 1944.
Wow.
All of that, all of that.
All those sevens.
I was gonna say that.
And I won't run on from there, but it's even worse than that. The number of 777 coincidences impacted into 2021 and March 16th, 2021 are so beyond my ability to explain that it just feels like a glitch in the matrix, or
yeah. I think we're totally in the matrix, or a different dimension, parallel dimensions.
That was always part of the what the Cathars were on about, is that they did insist that, like a lot of faiths, that we're living in an illusory world, and some kind of construct, that the material world is apparently an illusion created by not the ultimate God, but the demiurge of the material world. They felt that our souls or our consciousness were created by some other God and had been downloaded into this place.
I know. It makes you want to watch the Matrix series all over again.
I'm craving that, but when you say that out loud, it just seems so silly.
It does. It does.
When you watch it, you're like, wow, this could be so real.
Well, if you think about it, all of it just seems so surreal. All of it seems so surreal. All of this.
Yeah, it's certainly been very, very odd living through this process. I mean, I've made over the course of those 32 years, I've made a slow transition from being a reasonably rational television researcher across to, I guess, by modern standards, being something of a raving lunatic or religious zealot, just because the gradual mounting number of coincidences and the crazy repetitive patterns of history, the way that things seem to events seem to echo and repeat themselves over and over again. There's been a very steady build to this this point of the point we're now at, this time of prophecy, where we've seen a number of events over the last few years which have fed into this. The Holy Roman Church issued a partial apology for the Albigensian genocide, which happened in 2016, where a group of Holy Roman prelates were dispatched to Montsegur, clutching sprigs of green laurel. They all arrived with their laurel in hand and their shepherd's crooks. They were met by approximately 1,500 Cathar sympathizers who had gathered around the church in Montsegur. And a Cathar version of the Mass was performed in the consecrated church by woman priests, which the Holy Roman legates were forced to sit through. I think it's probably the first time that in history that's happened.
Wow.
They issued a very carefully worded partial apology.
Right.
I'd say partial also because the Dominican order refused to participate. The Dominican order were the black garb monks were the ones who were the administrators of the Inquisition. Essentially, that needs to happen. They really do need to apologize for the Inquisition. The equivalent of a Truth and Justice Commission really does need to examine the crimes of the Inquisition. They have to own up to them, because until the crime is recognized, it's really impossible to forgive them.
Yeah, and they're not recognizing the crime.
Yeah.
How many atrocities are caused out there, crimes against humanity, and how many of them don't recognize it?
Yeah, and the role of the Inquisition in this whole mess is hugely significant. I mean, for starters, the practice of burning the heretics, which was established during the Crusade, it was something they came to gradually. Like when the Crusades got rolling down here in Occitania, the first city they came to, Béziers, which they came to on the feast day of Mary Magdalene in 1209. In Béziers, they killed everyone. They killed every man, woman, children, and animal, and burnt the city. The last of them tried to take refuge in the church, also the Church of Mary Magdalene, and were killed and burned alive in the church. And this presented them with a problem, because the dogs of war needed to be paid, and without spoils of war, there was no way to pay the mercenaries. And if you kill all the women, there's no one to rape, and so it wasn't a good idea. And so when they came to the second city, to Carcassonne, they came up with a different approach, and they thought, okay, this time round, we'll let all of them go. You guys can all go free as long as you leave the city naked, wearing nothing but your sins. And they herded them all out of the city and took everything they owned, and took the city so they could pay the dogs of war and give them spoils. Right. But again, this wasn't really satisfactory, and it was only when they got to Minerve that someone had the bright idea of, let's separate the Christians from the heretics, and we'll let the Christians go and we'll burn the heretics. And I think Minerve was the first example of actually burning folk. And the Inquisition didn't exist at that point. It was only created after the Crusades started to wind down, when they realized a military campaign wasn't enough to crush the heretics and to crush the pagans who were here in quite large numbers. And so there were also it was a very substantial Jewish population who were also either driven out or exterminated at the same time. And there was also a substantial Muslim population who suffered the same fate. So it wasn't just the Cathars. The Cathars were the pretext for it, but there were a number of other groups who were persecuted at the same time. And then, of course, the Inquisition came up with a system of interrogation and a bureaucracy which designed to identify heretics and to identify Jewish people, even if they were living under the cover of Christianity.
Mhm.
That the Inquisition then gave rise to the witch hunters, who came quite a bit later. I
Right.
mean, Matthew Hopkins, the most notorious hunter, the Witchfinder General, was a
Yes.
Puritan.
Yes.
He was a Puritan thanks to his mum. His mum was a French Huguenot, and I'm sure it's Matthew's mum, coming from French Huguenot Southern stock, who
Mm.
brought those ideas with them to England, and as a
Mhm.
result, Matthew managed to start burning people again. He, after a gap in hundreds of years, he succeeded in burning a lady at the stake in Norfolk and brought it back. And then Matthew, before dying at a thankfully early age from tuberculosis, also wrote a book, The Discovery of Witchcraft, The Discovery of Witches, which then
Mhm.
became the manual for Cotton Mather in Salem.
Yeah.
And the thing fucking jumped the
Mm.
Atlantic and continued in the New World. So
Mhm.
for me, it's a little like a social disease. I think it's transmitted like an STD.
Mm.
It's a little like a psycho religious syphilis,
Mhm.
which seems to have started somewhere around the time of the fall of Bezier or the fall of Minerve, and it's a problem that's gone on and on and on for centuries, and has cost the lives of thousands of innocent people. And I think it's a tendency. It continues into the present day.
Oh yeah,
And you,
it's sad. You immigrate someplace to start new, and you bring all of these behaviors with them, and it just becomes rampant in the new world.
yeah, so hence the part of the need for people to really look at what the Inquisition did, to
Mm.
bring it into our classrooms, to get some kind of acknowledgement or apology of that, because if it's a social virus that's acting on people's
Mm.
unconscious, it's really something that needs to be weeded out of our culture and out of our civilization. It's a scar that has to be healed. It has to be fixed if those crimes are not going to take place again.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
And that you could go as far as
Yeah.
saying that the Inquisition's system of interrogation, and the way that they used informers and spies, and the bureaucracy that they created, also laid the foundations for the modern surveillance state. I think pretty much every intelligence service, from the Stasi and the KGB to Homeland Security, owe a debt to the Inquisition.
Right. Right. So in modern times, then, you think behind the
The
scenes, do you think there's still people who are behaving as such? Because I mean, I know that you've had some issues, even like, why do you think
Yeah,
that is? Getting the word out. Nobody wants you to, just certain things that people just don't want you to come out and say.
yeah, I think it's fair to say that sadly it's still a hot issue.
Right.
And there's any number of folk out there who would very much like to silence me, kill me, or
Jeez.
completely erase my work. There have been attempts on my life in the last year. And I would also say that there's nary a single person left out there who's written about this material in English who hasn't suffered attacks in the last 12 months. Last year to 2 years, it's become a distinct pattern. And here I'm thinking of attacks that have been brought against not just Hamilton White and myself,
As they were,
but
he had briefly touched on this, which is why I was bringing this up. But yes, can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think
um,
he was hoping that you would.
yeah, no, it's certainly time for some of this material to come out, because like I say, I'm not the only one,
Mm.
and that we've taken casualties. There's, at this point in time, 3 dead associated just with Hamilton's show.
You're kidding. I did
No,
not
I'm
know
not.
that.
Yeah, Hamilton was one of the presenters of a show called Lost Relics of the Knights
Yes.
Templar,
Right.
which has now, which was attacked to such an extent that it's now been removed from television. So the show got cancelled. And not only that, from the first season of the show, there's the first season now trails a body count, which is certainly disturbing. The first couple of people who died on it, I was prepared to accept it was coincidence or natural causes, but by the time I lost my friend Annika Corman, who was one of the
I knew Annika. Yeah.
show, I had to take cognizance of the fact that someone or something is killing us and is deliberately trying to shut this material down. And the timing of the attacks and the language of them has also been very carefully calculated to send a message to us. And that, Annika came under sustained cyber attack and cyberbullying. And unfortunately, she passed on the 4th of July this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Annika's sole crime was that she had appeared on the Lost Relics show, and she had written 3 self-published novels concerning Otto Rahn. Again, Otto was Annika's hero, and she had reinvented him as the time-traveling protagonist of her 3 books. But they're novels and pretty lightweight. They're not by any means books that carry any ideological content.
Right.
Annika worked as a tour guide out here, and was the principal tour guide here in Rennes-le-Château. Yet in the attacks on the net, she was mischaracterized as a religious leader, accused of being an anti-Semite and a rape enabler, and essentially, bullied to death. Which similar patterns have been displayed towards Nicholas Goodrick Clark, the author of Occult History of the Third Reich, and Jocelyn Goodwin, both of whom have been attacked in a similar way, both of whom also wrote about Otto Rahn and the Ahnenerbe SS. When the attacks were launched against the History Channel, they were very specifically bullied into re-editing the first season of Lost Relics in order to omit any mention of Montsegur, the Pyrenean Grail, or the Cathars, and obviously myself.
Right.
As with the attacks brought against me, there's been a pattern which indicates an ideological intent on behalf of our attackers to effectively delete or cancel this section of history. At this point in time, anyone writing about Otto Rahn or the Pyrenean Grail or the inner workings of the Ahnenerbe SS stands to be attacked and cancelled.
But why? What is it about this research that they don't want to see out? We have about probably like close to a few million people listening, so just go out with it.
Yeah, and I would add to that list as well that the first 2 casualties of the show before Annika were unmentioned. The Portuguese treasure hunter who first unearthed the so-called Tomar Hoard committed suicide last year, shortly after March 16th, for reasons that reasons unknown. At the time, I was unclear whether that connected to everything else, but it's becoming increasingly suspicious. And the other name associated with it is Tim Wallace Murphy, who was initially engaged to establish the provenance of the hoard, and Tim also, passed under a cloud under mysterious circumstances 2 years ago, and I was really brought onto the show to replace Tim. So there was already a problem, I guess, by the time I got there. Tim's the author of the Rex Deus books, also about the Grail family.
Yes. Yes. So again, why do you think? What is it about this research? It's just that they just don't want out there. Why? Are we? Is this a threat maybe to the church? Is this a threat? Why should this be hidden? Why should history be lost forever? It's history.
Well,
it's done. It's
not, unfortunately.
Yeah, see, I'm playing devil's advocate. So, okay.
Yeah, you see, that's the problem. I thought it was done too. I thought it was safe when I started on this trail.
Right.
I came into it very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, thinking it would make a TV documentary, and I thought, okay, I've covered wars in the earlier part of my life. I was in Afghanistan. I covered the American occupation of Haiti. I came out of South Africa. I also was present at the time in Rwanda and Uganda at the time of the Rwandan genocide. So I've covered wars in the past as a documentarian and a journalist. And I really thought with this one, with the Rahn story, that we were safe. That for once covering something that had happened decades before, where the last rounds had already been fired. Maybe it was, it would be safe for us to sit down and deal with the subject. But of course, that's not the case.
It seemed like the most benign thing that you've been through when you approached us. Probably looked at it thinking, this is a light, this is a great story to tell and to create awareness, and so people can understand what they really went through and what happened. Do you fear for your life now, though?
Not so much, because at this point in time, now the French police are involved, and a police investigation is underway. So I feel now there is a degree of recognition of what's been going on by the authorities.
That's good.
And I've got a fairly substantial legal team beavering away, trying to unravel who did what to whom.
So you know these people are.
Yeah.
What I was saying. Okay.
I've gotten a pretty clear idea of what, at the beginnings of a clear idea, I guess, because it runs so deep that it's difficult to fully comprehend.
Right.
I mean, effectively, there's any number of people who have a vested interest in erasing this inconvenient bit of history. For starters, it's extremely damaging to contemporary Christianity. If for no other reason, from the fact that it's looking increasingly likely that the so-called heretics were the actual Christians, the original Christians, the proto-Christianity that came before Catholicism.
Yeah, it changes the whole story.
It does change the whole story.
Well, the Cathars stemmed from the Essenes, did they not?
Yeah, that's the
real deal.
The running issue. Basically, the Bible and what we know about Christianity is largely the product of the Holy Roman Church, who started re-editing and rewriting the book about 1,000 years after the event, and substantially changed the message to such an extent that our modern concept of Christianity has been utterly deformed or perverted by it. And dialing back 1,000 years, we realize that the so-called heretics admitted to a belief in reincarnation and a belief that all living things possessed souls.
The Bible speaks about that. They've left that in there. So
this insistence that animals don't go to heaven or don't have souls, I think, has been an obstacle to children's faith for a super long time. It's also obvious to anyone who's spent time around animals or spent time in nature that they're clearly sentient beings. which deserve to be treated as sentient beings, and that's a huge obstruction, it seems, to all three of the monotheisms, who stubbornly refuse to believe that. But beyond that, it also shows that early Christianity had an awful lot in common with Buddhism. That the two faiths aren't particularly far apart. They have a similar belief in karma, and the notion that that we're living in an illusory realm, and that our souls get thrown back into this place time and time again unless we can level our karma, which is a distinctly Buddhist notion, but it's right there in the earlier versions, and also a hugely important and politically contentious issue is the primacy of the role of the woman in the early Christian church. I mean, the women are clearly the priestesses, the priestess class, and it's quite clear that a patriarchal group hijacked the religion and rewrote it to make certain that only men could be priests, only a man can be pope, and that has to end if Christianity is going to remain relevant to further down the pike at some point, as well as as owning up to the Inquisition. The Holy Roman Church really does have to reform that. We do need a woman pope.
Yeah.
Have to rewrite Catholicism for that.
That's issue number one, is it does strike at some fundamental issues that run through, I guess, all three of the monotheisms. So there is a certain awkwardness to that. Then, you could also argue that another problem lies in that if the relics are authentic, and I can tell you that they are, that the chalices, the pieces from the Tomar Hoard can be dated back to the time of the Second Temple, then that also has a huge impact on the situation in Israel, from the point of view that obviously there's a vested interest in wanting to prove ancient Jewish usage of Temple Mount. Because if that's the case, then that creates a pretext to effectively drive the Palestinians from Jerusalem and to rebuild the Temple of Solomon.
Their temple, yes.
Which is in step with the basically with all those folk out there who, as part of the Christian faith, believe that we are living in the end times of prophecy, or that we are living in the tribulation, and thus want, for one reason or another, to fulfill the conditions necessary for the second coming of Christ, which includes the recreation of the Temple of Solomon on Temple Mount, which means basically destroying El Aqsa Mosque. So that's another hugely contentious and deeply problematic issue relating to the provenance of the archaeological relics concerned.
So it's a history changer, basically.
Yeah, again, it's
and it would change the politics of that history.
Yeah, and so a lot of different sides have a vested interest in the current problem, which makes it super dangerous. And I find it deeply bizarre that those relics are at least the Tomar Hoard is currently in the possession of Hamilton White, who's just had his home hit by lightning.
It's not there. Oh, Hamilton's
No.
not silly.
No.
Well, he is, but he drinks a lot of bad beer. But aside from that, he's a smart cookie. Yeah.
The chalice is okay.
Yeah.
The chalice was not damaged by the lightning strike.
No.
Oh,
No,
Although
they're
it did
they're
strike
safe.
into the very same facility,
Yeah,
where,
no,
which
no,
yeah.
they're safe. Yeah, they're safe.
Well, I do believe that the force that protects us is stronger than the force that opposes us at this point in time, which has been, my one, the one thing I've been able to cling to in the last couple of years.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, if we want to keep digging into the nitty gritty of who's responsible. Um,
No, the stage is yours. Your
yeah,
show.
to do that, I need to unpack a little bit more about the Cathar initiation,
Okay.
and the adepts, the perfecti, the religious leaders of the Cathar faith, who are really the only ones who are expected to abide by the dogma. They were the only ones that really led a Spartan life of purity. The rest of the population, the credents, were only supposed to take their vows on their deathbed. And this initiation is something known as the consolamentum. And this consolamentum was allegedly a form of direct illumination, a little bit like being hit on the head of a happy stick.
Right.
When you receive the consolamentum, you're meant to remember your true spiritual nature, and remember that your actual life extended beyond your birth and your death, and become instantly enlightened. And moreover, it was kind of it was spread by direct contact, a bit like a virus. You had to touch the hand or be touched by an adept who'd been touched by another adept, thus forming an unbroken chain going all the way back to the Essenes or beyond.
Gnostics. Yeah.
Yeah, so it spread a bit like a virus through direct contact. And because it spread like a virus, the Catholic Church sought to contain it like a virus. So they isolated all the people who'd received it, cut them off from the rest of the population, and then incinerated them in the hope of wiping it out forever. And they allegedly, destroyed the consolamentum forever 7 centuries ago in 1321. But subsequent years, people have striven to try to reclaim the consolamentum and restart the line of direct initiation. And as a result, in the present day, there's several different groups who all believe that they have some version of the consolamentum.
Were there any survivors that could have continued this, or were they all literally were they all killed? Because you could, if there are descendants, if there were any survivors, you could continue that.
Yeah,
history, right?
and there's many folk who claim that that's the case.
Okay.
There's certainly folk out here, and I'm thinking particularly among the European Rosicrucians,
Right.
who were under the influence of a man named Antonin Gedal, who Gedal believed that he'd received a direct initiation from an old blind man he took care of as a child, a man he refers to as Papa Garrigou, who he claimed gave him some version of the consolamentum. And then there's also folk out here who believe that some version of this survives in the traditional Occitan healing rituals, which also involve a laying on of hands. And there's certainly areas where pockets of people were left unmolested, or where what they would now call heretics survived for centuries longer.
Right.
And this is one of the things that I guess Otto Rahn was on the case about, because there are possibilities of survival, but again, like not having Christ's DNA, trying to authenticate a rel consolamentum from, it's just as likely that Goodell made it up. It was a
it's
wonderful
difficult.
story that he invented decades later in order to justify an ancient lineage for his secret society.
Mhm.
Which is a running issue with most secret societies, is that they
Right.
have to the membership do have to believe that there is an ancient transmission of genuine
Right.
information.
Much like the priori of Salem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So trying to prove who's got the rel consolamentum is again virtually impossible. And then this brings me to the burning issue, which is that a lot of folk in the 19th century, during the great age of spiritualism and or in France, spiritism, sought to re-establish the initiatory line by channeling the ascended Cathar masters.
Right. Unheard of.
By channeling Guillaume de Castries, the last head of the Cathar Church, or channeling the great Esclamond, now Esclamond, the greatest of the Cathar high priestesses.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, an individual named Jules Douanel and Lady Caithness, who channeled Tau Esclamonda and Guillaume de Castries at a seance back in the late 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
In 1890, Jules Douanel declared it the era of Gnosis restored and founded the Gnostic Church, and which pronged into the Gnostic Catholic Église, the Gnostic Catholic Church, which is certainly is a sense of trying to renew the initiatory link by through reaching out to the astral presences by channeling the consolamentum into the present day. Then that Douanelian initiation, which the Gnostic Catholic Mass, which is the central rite of the Gnostic Catholic Église, was then borrowed and repurposed to become the central rite of the Ordo Templi Orientis of the OTO, Aleister Crowley's initiatory organization,
Yes.
which basically adopted the Douanel's Gnostic Catholic Mass, to a sense perverted it in that their version requires a high priest, high priestess, a deacon, and effectively 2 children, which is the central rite of the modern day OTO. And it's coming. The attacks directed against me have been directed largely by the OTO, or at least by one individual, Tonlis Rugas, who styles herself as a high-ranking member of the Californian OTO, who's basically responsible for the attacks on Hamilton and on Annika, and on basically bouncing Tracy Robertson, aka Scarlett Amaris, one of my ex-girlfriends, into writing a fully mendacious blog attacking myself, which was headed 777, which also happens to have a resonance to the OTO, and which was promoted online in a very organized way as an organized hit on March 16th, 2021, timed for the 777th anniversary of the fall of Montsegur, and the point when the laurel was supposed to turn green again. And this would seem to be on one level a war over who has the rel consolamentum.
Wow. What do you say to that?
Yeah,
I'm still trying to absorb it.
I'm just like, wow.
This feels like Da Vinci Code Part 3.
Yes.
it's a goddamn mess. There's any number of folk who see Mont Segur as their Mount Sinai.
Yeah, I'm still trying to absorb the 3 deaths because I was unaware of this, and this changes a lot.
Yeah. So what is it specifically about Mount Sinai that everybody wants to, like you say, call it their Mount Sinai? I mean, they don't want any of this information getting out. It's not like it's not hard to research. It's really not. I mean, from your perspective to the depth of what you've done with the knowledge that you have, obviously it's a little bit different. But I mean, you can't stop. Try as you might. History has a way of making itself known. It just does. You can't necessarily stop the progress of that. Not too many people are going to know about it once this book comes out. That's it.
Well, we've got a maxim, I guess, truth will out. And truth is irreducible. I mean, what was once true, what was true in 1244 or in the 12th century remains true. And a lie, even if it's believed, is still a lie. But and truth, even if no one believes it, is still true. And what was true back then is still true now. And I guess on a spiritual level, Otto Rahn believed that the Holy Grail, he at least didn't so much believe, but as a metaphor, he equated it with the diadem of Lucifer, the crown of Lucifer. He talks about the Grail being the diadem that Lucifer wore, the fairest of God's angels, when he was cast out of heaven. The diadem fell from his brow, fell to earth, and became the stone, or became the Grail. The Grail is the lost link with the creator deity, with the enlightened state, with heaven. The link that the rebel angel lost when he fell. And as a result, the servants of the rebel angel continue to seek the Grail. The servants of the forces of darkness continue to lay siege to the Grail even unto the present day. When I had the one of the principal relics authenticated recently, I passed it to professional archaeologists and to a friend that will remain unnamed, who has close links to UNESCO, the UN, and to also to the intelligence services. When we were able to match the substance the chalice was made out of to a quarry in Israel.
Yes.
To my surprise, this academic was completely unsurprised by this. I was amazed about the provenance of the hoard, but he just kind of shrugged it off and said, "Well, given that we're living in the end times of prophecy, it makes sense that some symbolic physical manifestation of the Grail would show up. And it also makes sense that there's an opposing force that is determined to lay siege to the castle and obliterate all trace of it, because that happens every time." Which makes me feel like I'm trapped in one of those Final Destination movies.
I was going to say,
back away
just
from
keep
the
looping.
log truck. Back away from the log truck.
That's just it. Yes.
Yeah, it's just too much. But
we just have to do a very quick station and sponsor ID.
Yeah, it's that time. You are listening to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, coming to you live on 105.3 FM from the gorgeous city of New Orleans. Tonight's guest, I want to call him Sir Richard Stanley. And if you're listening, you'll know why. Shout out and thank you to the amazing people at Folgers Coffee for fully sponsoring our show from day one. Thank you for your support and your continuing sponsorship. Also, a big thank you for our intro and outro, to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, award-winning composer and musician, You can find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. He is posting all kinds of links to his new music ready for Halloween. Stream or listen to our archives on the platform you normally use. And please remember, wherever you're listening from right now, please subscribe and give us a like too.
Excellent. And we are back. So, wow.
I need a drink.
I don't.
Yeah, I got one, but I'm in Occitania and I can't pass it over.
Oh gosh,
Darn it.
seriously.
Oh,
I
gosh.
feel like I need to run away from the screen and pour some cognac or something.
Something strong, I know.
Yeah, something that can just straighten that right out. I'm in total shock, Richard. Like there's oh my gosh. I can't even go there. That's not a conversation for the masses, but
it's not. No.
Well, thank you for having me on the show and allowing me to even get this out here.
Oh, you still have time. You're still on for another half hour.
Super.
Say anything you like. Yes. Oh, here.
Yeah.
This one's for you, Richard. Cece says hello. So that's for you. Just to address a couple of comments as we move forward.
Yeah. There's been so many.
We try to just let them come in the end. I find this comment extremely interesting. That the Cathars. Oh, Amelia, go ahead.
No, it's okay. You started.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh my gosh. Carrie's really impressed me because she really knows her stuff, and I'm learning a lot from you. So thank you. Cathars didn't revere the symbol of the crucifix cross, but rather the symbol of the dove of the Holy Spirit.
Which the church does too.
Yes, they do, especially during Easter and spring. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And yeah, here in Occitania, the local myth is that Na Esclamond de Foix, the greatest of the Cathar high priestesses, never died. She has no death date. Otto researched her genealogy. We know when she was born. We know all about her children. We know all about her family, but she has no death date. She never. The myth is that she never died, but passed alive into the kingdom of heaven, like the prophet Elijah or like Christ. Na Esclamondo is supposed to have ascended. The story, strictly speaking, is that she didn't just ascend; she turned into a dove.
And flew away.
That's right, yeah. And in some versions, the dove split the mountain with its beak, and the Grail was thrown into the mountain, which closed around it, and so the Grail was saved, and the dove flew away or became the symbol of the Cathar faith. Esclamond became the living symbol of the faith.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, historians. Yeah, it's an incredible story, and I won't have the time to unpack it all, but in the fullness of the story, there were in fact 3 Esclamonds in 3 successive generations, who all were vitally involved in the story of Montsegur. Basically, Esclamond de Foix enabled the castle to be built and endowed its construction, and that would have been a very old woman if she was still alive at the time of the siege in 1244. The second Esclamond, her niece Esclamond Dalian, would have been about 38 at the time of the siege. She was not an initiated Cathar. She allegedly donned man's armor and picked up a sword to defend the castle like a sort of Occitan Red Sonja. Took many lovers. She was not celibate. She was Esclamond l'Amoureuse or Esclamond the Bastard, the second Esclamond. And then the third Esclamond, Esclamond de Paray, was probably about between 9 and 13 years old at the time of the siege. Was a little girl who perished on the fire on the Camp de Cremat on March the 16th. So the 3 of them, the great Esclamond, who allegedly turned into a dove or transcended, became one of the ascended masters, the one allegedly channeled by Jules Douanel in 1895. 1890. You've got the great Esclamond, the mother. You've got the warrior woman, who defended the castle with her life with the sword, and you've got the innocent child who died on the fire, the result of the centuries of history. Led to a completely innocent child being burned alive, which is one of the great crimes of of our civilization. But the three of them together also conform to Robert Graves' schema of the threefold goddess. Escalmond herself is supposed to have literally, ascended. So there's kind of another gospel going on here.
Yeah.
But,
it's fascinating, to say the least. I find it all fascinating. I love the history behind all of it. Amelia, this is going back to talking about the popes.
Yeah, further back. Kathy Lamport writes, wasn't there a female pope in the 1600s disguised as a male?
Yeah, Pope Joan.
There we go. So talking about female popes.
There is that story, smuggled herself in.
Good for her.
That's right. All right.
But that's really got to end. I mean, I do feel that if Christianity is going to remain a thing, it needs to address the points.
Yeah,
it needs to go back to the beginning where Mary Magdalene was known to preach. So
yeah, and we also see in those early times a fusion of Christianity and I mentioned Buddhism, but also with paganism.
That's right.
Escalmond, the priestess, is at once an initiated Christian priestess, but is also the living symbol of the goddess. It's kind of harmonious. Like there's kind of a middle ground between all of the faiths, which I think may be achievable.
Right. All right.
Okay. Carol Hernandez asked, have they found Noah's Ark?
They believe they have, I think.
They believe it, yeah. Didn't they take a satellite view or picture of it somewhere in, oh my gosh.
It's in Turkey. You can go visit.
Is it Turkey?
Is that
in the mountains?
Richard? Do you think that's the right one? On the mountain in Turkey? Not in Ararat, down below.
I'm not really qualified to comment on the Ark because
okay.
really the Grail guy.
We will leave that right there then. Sorry, Carol. This is a really good point.
It is. Divine feminine is rising so strongly now. Patriarchy is running scared. It's a good point. And Carrie, you did say yes, but Catholics, etc., wouldn't say it's female divine energy. I think that you would be surprised by how many would say it is, because even my mom, who, I mean, she rest in peace, who would have been in her 90s right now, always believed that anybody should be able to minister, anyone should be able to be a priest. And she was a devout Catholic, but she believed in Mary Magdalene as the wife of Jesus. She never believed what was said. And my mom comes from a family of bishops and cardinals and priests. So I grew up with a different perspective on that story. And it is a story. You have to remember, they are trying to decipher the vernacular of that day, and they can't do it, but yet they're printing out these Bibles and people are still reading these stories. So it never ends. It's never corrected.
That's true.
Yeah.
So moving forward, just as we slowly inch towards the end of the show, we have about 15 minutes. What's up next on the docket with you, Richard? Aside from trying to get this book published, what's next?
Well, we're kind of in a state of war down here, which is just how it is. Fortunately, we're winning. Up next, I'm staying with the book until it's actually published and actually available to people. Because in numerous instances, certainly with my documentary work, there've been all kinds of attacks to get basically directed against the distributors and the rights holders, to try and get people to drop the material from Amazon or to literally drop it from the internet. So
they're not going to make it easy for you.
No, I would like to see that The Last Crusade can actually reach the public, which hasn't yet reached the public. It's still living on various people's hard drives.
It's coming.
I want to stay with it. until we've seen the that process through. At the same time, also there is a police investigation going on out here, and that's the Ordo Templi Orientis was mentioned in report number 2468 of the Commission of Inquiry of Sects in France in the Assemblée Nationale.
Wow.
There will be ramifications, and Tracy Robertson and Tony Lee Rugas have both been charged with at this point with a number of different charges under the Code Penal and the Code Travail to do with harassment, defamation, and what have you. So this affair will continue to play out. We need to get Hamilton back online, rewired.
Right. Yeah,
So,
because you guys also are continuing forward as well together on the project, yes?
Following this, I think there's going to have to be probably at least 2 more books, because
Wow.
the situation is complex, to say the least. Force of circumstance has meant that the first book is dedicated to every single thing that I know about Otto Rahn and the hidden archaeology of Montsegur. But it's relegated to the past. So a second book is going to have to happen, dealing with the present day situation, we expect Crusade Against the Grail 2 for next year. And there's also a feature-length documentary scheduled to land in the coming months, which has been shot over the course of the last 7 years. And there were 2 camera crews present on the Camp de Cremat on the Field of the Stake on March 16th, 2021. I guess I might say 1244, almost got it 700 years out of date. But, there were 2 crews present, and in a bizarre twist of fate, that was when the 777 attack broke out. At that same moment, my telephone was hacked and cut. My bank account was hacked. Hamilton's bank account was hacked. My Wi-Fi was shut down. We were subjected to a very intense cyber attack.
You need to stay offline.
Yeah, there were 2 camera crews present when that happened, and simultaneously on the Field of the Stake, we were all accidentally exposed to a rare Scandinavian form of COVID, which meant we were then immediately quarantined by the French sanitation department, and the camera crew was not allowed to go home, so they kept shooting. So the entire thing has been covered in anamorphic and widescreen, and a feature-length documentation of everything that happened is scheduled to land at the end of this year.
Wow.
Continues all the way through to the court battle with the witches, and the point when our opponents left court looking extremely crushed and angry.
Right.
So the entire thing will be edited into a presentable state, and I'm not, of course, involved in any of that in the editorial decisions, because it has to be impartial.
Right.
It has
Of course.
Of course.
What really happened.
Of course.
I'm eagerly awaiting this event.
Oh, so are we.
There we go. One more, because I think this would be a little bit lengthy.
Chavalis asks, Richard, can you share your White Lady experience?
In the time available, I can't, but I wish I could. But the thing that really pushed me over the edge on this whole mess was basically after 17 years of being on it, when I thought I knew everything, I saw an apparition in the castle. Myself and one of my current opponents, Tracy Robertson, were both present when a glowing white female apparition, resembling to some extent a Marvel comic books character. She was a goddess, and young and fierce, and manifested in the castle of a thing which many other people have written about in different accounts, which I never believed until I saw it firsthand. And it also contained many aspects of a Marian apparition, the sweet smell of sanctity, like flowers or roses. The look of it could have been mistaken for a Marian apparition, were it not for the fact that it was happening in a castle that had been destroyed by the Holy Roman Church and damned as the serpent's head, or the synagogue of Satan. So,
wow.
It was a disorientating experience, but forced me to believe in the reality of the story.
Wow. Yeah, that's insane. My gosh. What haven't you had experiences with? That's crazy.
Yes, it cracked me up both of us at the time, because there was no support group to go to. If it had been a UFO, we might have sought out other UFO contactees. If it had been the living presence of Christ, we would have known who to go to. But running into a Valkyrie, or some version of a super heroine was something that I was not expecting.
No. Well, I mean, you're in the area for it. You know, let's face it, the Languedoc area is teeming with all sorts of experiences that are, I guess, shall we say, out of this world. You know, I know a lot of people down that area who catch UFOs. Why not divine sightings? Or
there's been a lot of UFO stuff in the last week.
Oh wow, really?
A lot of people reporting mothership stuff going on, and it's true there have been massive weird lenticular cloud formations with crazy lightning and stuff.
Yeah.
Are you sure it was lightning that hit Hamilton's home?
Yeah.
It takes nothing for a craft to go from France to UK.
Yeah, poor Hamilton, not what he needs.
Weirdly, none of the circuit breakers tripped and none of the fuses blew, and it worked its way through the house in a manner which was tripping anomalous.
Right. We'll leave that right there.
I think we should think this one.
I know.
Was it Mother Nature? Well, either way, he won't be covered by insurance.
No, definitely an act of something anyway.
Yeah.
This conversation.
From what I understand, you and Hamilton are joining us again December 29th.
Yeah, I certainly hope so.
You are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are we sharing champagne? We're so close to New Year's.
We're so close, I know.
Are we allowed to drink, Joe?
We know Hamilton will be sharing something in there. For sure. So, we're sneaky about it, but we always know. So tell everybody how to get a hold of you, how to order, can they see your films? Can they order them? Can they, do you have any of your books, anything like that? Just promote yourself and get it out there.
Okay, well, I mean, Last Crusade is scheduled to land. The sad truth of it is I've lost control of the revenues from pretty much any of my movies. So all of which have been attacked for different crazy reasons. So it's a tricky thing, but they're out there. You can certainly find them and buy them. I won't probably see any benefit from it, but most recently, not just yet. It's I do intend to obviously reclaim some of that lost territory, but for the time being, all of it's effectively out of my control. Color Out of Space, my last feature film as a director, is currently one of the most viewed films on streaming.
It was a huge hit.
Yeah, so it's doing extremely well for someone. Uh,
Okay, then I won't watch it if it's not
Yes.
benefiting you.
yeah,
As much as I love Nick Cage, I won't watch it.
I'd still recommend it. And there's been no time on tonight's show, but there's a whole Lovecraftian component to this mess.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I mean, you want to talk about, I mean, I love H.P. Lovecraft. You want to come on sometimes to talk about your films and H.P. Lovecraft. I'm all over that.
I'd love to, because as you well know, Lovecraft's been attacked, and the Lovecraft fan base has been attacked. And some of the people that we're fighting against have also played a key part in that. It was Tonley's Rugass, who used an individual named Adam Scott Glancy to basically divide the Lovecraft community, and they've been directly attacked. So it fully factors into this whole mess, just as Lovecraft himself has become a victim of cancel culture.
Wow.
So,
we should do that sometime, like the beginning, because we're booked up like solid into, probably middle of January, February now. But I think it would be really good for a 2023 bang.
Start off with Kathy.
Yeah, I mean,
Kathy,
bang.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Kathy wrote, "Never heard of Lovecraft." I bet you do, and you just don't know it.
Yes.
Because there's just a lot out there, and I bet you've seen something and you just don't realize it.
No.
There's a lot.
Oh, there's a whole movement.
Yeah.
It's in a very similar state of affairs. It's a parallel thing. I mean, the Lovecraft alien ultra-dimensional presence here in the zone, Mount Bukharash, and those so-called lenticular cloud formations that have been parked overhead here. And Cthulhu and the Lovecraftian mythos is all to do with the return of the old ones.
Yes.
Les Grands Anciens, the great old ones.
Yes.
The ultra-dimensional alien inhuman
I love it.
Yeah, they're allegedly trying to break back into our paradigm and remanifest themselves.
Yes.
I know.
I love Lovecraft.
I think a lot of people don't realize they've seen a lot of it. I don't think they realize it.
I know. I remember the first time my son came up to me, and when he was, quite a bit younger, and he started joking around and talking about Cthulhu. So I had a big painting done for him. A friend of mine, is an artist. He did this big, giant painting of Cthulhu, and I said, I know exactly what that is. And he was just like, what? Okay, I am not that old. Okay, kid. That's it. So, forget it.
Kathy, Google. Just Google. I
Just
bet you'll be like,
H.P.
wow,
Lovecraft.
I can't believe I knew that. Yeah.
I know.
It's bigger
He's
than
amazing.
you think.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a thing, and I think that the neo-Cathars, the Lovecraft community, really have to fight to make certain that the mythos, the old ones, gets its fair representation in the media and actually gets its voice heard.
Yes.
Because it's time that stuff landed and arrived, and there's a lot of other folk who are using every unscrupulous method to cancel it or stop it from happening. And it's time that Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth have their goddamn day and are streamed in people's lounges.
I just have to say, cancel culture really pisses me off. Just because you cancel something doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Can't even get me started on that.
Oh, don't get me started. We don't have
so
the kind
volatile
of time
with stuff like that. I'll get us I'll get us totally booted off YouTube if I get started. All that censorship. Anyway, I really want to thank you for coming on. I really was looking so forward to this because I know, the Languedoc area south of France in general, but especially the south of France, is just so near and dear to me. I loved it. Can't wait to get back there. And being obviously not as versed as you are, but very versed in Gnosticism and this, the time of the Essenes, the Cathars, the Templars, all of that. It's just so near and dear. And to hear, just to hear it come from somebody who is so versed in it was really exciting. And I really want to thank you for taking the time to talk about it all with us. And I'm
Yes.
sorry you have to go through all of the other politics and the other stuff that's just shouldn't be happening. I say politics because in one form or another, that's what it ends up being.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, in the years
Wow.
that I've known months ago, we've had a takeover bid by Magdalenians when an American Magdalenian cult essentially tried to take over the village.
What?
That was
Oh
followed
my
by a
gosh.
theme park initiative, and the attempt to turn Montsegur into a theme park Montsegur.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh. What is
which
wrong
is
with them?
our very own plutocrat, technocrat character, Robert Finance, who came out of the Toulousian Airbus industry and proposed the notion of the theme park Montsegur initiative, which we fought for years. Then when we thought that was over, we had a mountaintop mining company, which decided to try and vaporize the Pic de Saint Barthélemy, the adjoining mountain, because they, like the Harkonnens in Dune, they'd discovered vast deposits of a hitherto unidentified mineral element known as Imrus Harg talc beneath the mountain, which they needed.
That's
Like
on your website.
rerun of of
Yeah.
Avatar or Fern Gully or something. So
How is that even allowed? How does the government even say, yes, this is the real thing, let's do it? Like,
That wouldn't happen in Israel, I can
these are
tell you that.
no,
They
these are
protect
historic
everything.
areas.
Yeah.
yeah, so
That's
never a
crazy.
dull moment around here. It's a crazy world.
You're not kidding. Crazy world. It's an understatement. My gosh. Well, thank you for coming on. We're looking forward to seeing you in Hamilton again in December, and who knows, if something opens up before that, maybe we can, squeak you in there, and especially since you can do it live. This is great.
He's awake anyways.
I know.
Maybe we can
You're awake.
maybe we
We're
can get
awake.
Hamilton to do the 29th live.
Hamilton. I don't know if he could stay up that late.
He's done it before. We can
Yeah,
squeeze him.
if he came round to my place and we did it from the Languedoc, that could work. I could keep him awake.
That could be fun. There we go.
Let's work on that for
But
New
will
Year's.
he be coherent enough to do an interview if you keep him awake?
Keep him coherent is the key.
Yeah. Poor Hamilton.
So keep the beer out of his hands until after the interview.
There we go.
I
Well,
could do that. I could watch him.
Oh, you're the best. I've been calling you Sir Richard for 3 days. I even told Hamilton, there's Hamilton. He's awake now. Hi, Hamilton.
Oh, hello,
Wow.
Hamilton. Here
So
we
if someone's
go.
on his phone.
There we go. There he
I
is.
was telling him today, I said, I've been calling Richard Sir for days. I just feel like I need to call you Sir Richard. I don't know if it's some kind of past life or something. Yeah.
I'm sure he won't mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Sir and Lord.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
I will be in touch with and an email after the show. I like to connect up and let you know how many people we're listening to tonight.
Well, that'd be a joy. And yeah, you take care out there.
All right.
Too.
You
be
also.
safe, Richard. Please be safe. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Pleasure joining you.
Thank you. Well, guys, that was amazing, to say the least. My gosh. So big thank you to Richard Stanley. Just a wealth of information and just so near and dear. The information was just, oh my God, so much you learn when you think you know so much and you realize, it's just a lot of research. But you guys, if you are in the Languedoc area, go down and see Richard, because he, I believe, does tours or can be connected with to do some tours down there if he's got the time. So big thank you to him. Big thank you to Folgers Coffee. Big thank you to Dr. Snick, Justin Snicker. And please, whichever platform you are on, subscribe, like us. Whatever it takes, just show us some love. If you need to contact us, please do so at the Outer Realm contact@gmail.com. The Outer Realm contact@gmail.com. Tomorrow night, another really amazing guest, Samuel Chong, who's going to be discussing, and I hope I say this properly, Hamilton can probably say it properly, the Theuba prophecy. It's going to be mind-blowing, to say the least. It's going to delve into ET, ghost prophecy, so much more. It's just really old knowledge. And here we go. You were right, Hamilton.
Yes, Hamilton, you were right.
Always
Sir
right.
Richard was amazing.
He was. Richard was great. Yes, he was.
And Kathy said thank you to Sir Richard.
There we go. Thank you, Sir Richard. See, it's not just us. There we go.
Yeah.
And there we go. Just trying to make sure we
Thanks,
get
Sad.
everybody. Here we go. So
Thanks, Ken.
everyone, behave. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Looking forward to another great show. So thank you to everyone who is in chat currently. You guys just make it so much more fun. So good night, everyone. Yes, his accent was
South
fabulous.
Africa is the top accent, just saying.
It is.
Yeah.
All right,
Scotland
everyone.
comes in second.
Good night.